Hello, I'm Sophie and today we are looking at the hot post from entitled parents. In today's first story, a P meets a parent who thinks they have the authority to stop a P leaving. This happened a while ago now and it was chilling in my notes and I forgot to post it. I'm not gonna do the cast stuff, it's all a bit cringe tie. I have just started university in Swansea, Wales, UK. I live and grew up in London, England, and we don't get many Karens in the UK, especially in London because people just don't have time for that shit. That being said, I would have expected for it to be more likely to have this interaction in London as opposed to Swansea. When I came here, I assumed that being a predominantly white area I would encounter some racism being of South Asian descent with brown skin. But I was pleasantly surprised to find everyone is really nice and helpful and much more welcoming than London. There was one incident though in a beefeater restaurant. It's like a weird restaurant with a pub bar attached to a 3-star hotel chain in the UK where everyone was staring at me as I moved about and I defo felt the xenophobic vibes. Anyway, I'm at the big Tesco in town supermarket chain. The company owns Own Fresh and Easy in the US, and I'm buying some food and homewares like frying pans and stuff, and with that I'm buying a load of alcohol for the flat. I'm talking 2 bottles of Baileys, large bottles of vodka and white rum, Disaronno, an 18-pack of Corona, Jägermeister, as well as Coke, Red Bull and soda water. It's not enough to fill a bar, but still a fair bit for one person to buy. As I'm paying at the till checkout, I have my driving license as ID ready to show the cashier. I'm 19 yet I have a pretty babyish face, and I'm pretty small, so I always expect to get ID'd. But for some reason the guy doesn't ask to see my ID, and I pay and start loading my shopping back into my trolley. As I'm doing so, the woman behind me with her teenager, maybe 15-17 starts speaking to the cashier. She was English, not Welsh, and the tone of her voice told me everything I needed to know immediately. Karen alert, she starts whining at scolding him, asking why he didn't check my ID. The young cashier also seemed to realize this wasn't going to be fun interaction and responds saying that I've shopped here before and he knows that I am of age. If that was bullshit or not though, because I don't recall seeing him before. The woman continues to berate him, telling him it sets a bad example to her kid because it shows him that he can get away with buying drinks underage and using fake IDs. If you see a situation like that, just teach your son not to do that. Don't come at me when you know no facts. At this point, I'm done loading my shopping and decide not to engage and leave. She instantly forgets the cashier and blocks my way, asking me to show her my ID and my bank card. I politely tell her she has no right, and she then loses her shit. She doesn't scream or raise her voice significantly, but her tone becomes incredibly aggressive and she starts pointing her finger at me and accusing me of buying alcohol whilst underage. I tell her I am of age and have every right to purchase what I just did, and if she has an issue she can go find the manager because she, a fellow customer in the store, has no jurisdiction over me. The cashier himself decides to call for a manager and apologizes to me. I notice the kid now and he gives me a stern look, but I'm pretty sure it was just to side with his mum and that he was also uncomfortable about the whole ordeal. The manager comes over and asks the cashier what's wrong, and lo and behold, the unbearable bitch interrupts the lad and starts berating the manager. The manager listens a little, stops her for a sec and turns to me and asks for ID. I give it to him, he checks it. He's happy, but as he goes to hand it back, the woman snaps at him with an expectant look on her face and says something like, "Sorry, but I'd like to check it myself." Not even a please. He gives it back to me anyway, which triggers a visible storm of anger within her, and she then proceeds to block his way and starts scolding him about poor customer service. Illegal business activity, et. The cashier tells me to leave and I do so because it's 9 p.m. and I can't be asked to deal with this. I hope that woman was kicked out or something, and if so I'm sad I didn't witness it, but dear God I feel sorry for that poor kid. In tonight's second story, Ian calls school for her son and has a tantrum. I work for a university in financial services, so I deal with lots of interesting people day to day. If you're not familiar with FEPA, and someone is 18, their records are considered theirs alone and they have to have a consent for on file for anyone to access it, or anyone else has to call in with the student on the phone. Anyway, I'm just minding my business at work one day, and Ian calls in about her son. First, she doesn't get his SSN right, doesn't know his ID for me to search him. So it took like 3 minutes to find him because he had a generic name. Think John Smith. Once we finally get the profile pulled up, I see there is no FEPA form on file for her, so I tell her that I can't go over specific information but can tell her general stuff. She absolutely loses her mind, calls me a dumb arsehole for not finding the account from the wrong social, a bitch, a cunt, and I don't even remember what else for not sharing information with her. Then, in true Ian fashion, demands to speak to my supervisor. I place her on hold, get him on the line after giving him a rundown. I don't have to stay on the call after, but out of curiosity I looked it up later. He told her the same thing because, it's literally a federal law. She also called my supervisor a dumb cunt. Told him she was disgusted that schools would hire people so incompetent, and that she's sending her son to a random other school where we won't have to deal with this. He also sent me a private message about how awful she was, which was unexpected but very validating lol. I still giggle about it sometimes. Because not only is FEPA required federally, so was the requirement that her son was supposed to be doing that. They were struggling, but almost done with, which means they'll have to restart at the next school. So she's going to really just do all that, because she didn't want to bring her son on the line or have him fill out a literal 5-minute form. Never spoke to the kid directly, but I assume he's also terrible, or just being horribly thrown around during his adult life because his mom doesn't know how to interact with humans. In tonight's third story, an entitled parent blows up at EP for enforcing safety rules. Okay, some backstory is necessary here. Place I work has a carousel, specifically one made back in the 1920s, that has a lot of strict rules for riding it, to ensure safety. Only 2 of those rules really matter for this story. Rule 1, one ring of the horses is off limits, because they aren't 6 feet apart. And Rule 2, hold onto the horse while the carousel is moving. With that out of the way, let's begin. It was a pretty normal day at work for me, with a line of people waiting to ride, when I let this story's EM and her 2 polite daughters onto the carousel. I gave me little spiel of the rules, then let them pass. Before I start the ride, I do a little walk around to make sure everyone is settled, and see daughter 1 has chosen a horse that is off limits. So I walk up and politely remind her of the rule and ask if she would please move to a different horse. She apologizes and moves horse without a peep of complaint, so I start the ride. As I'm watching the ride turn, Ian's other daughter stops holding on to her horse. So, to be audible over the music and the sound of machinery, I cup my hands round my mouth and call, "Keep your hands on your horse, please." She holds onto her horse again, but I see Ian lean over and whisper to her daughter. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I'm pretty sure now she was telling her daughter she didn't have to hold on. I say that because when the carousel came round again, the girl was not holding on anymore, so I politely but loudly reminded her a second time. Again, the girl grabs the horse, and Ian leans over and whispers something. When the carousel comes around again, I see the girl is again not holding on, so I stop the carousel. When it's no longer moving, I walk towards them and start to say, "Hey, I just need you to hold on for safety," when Ian gets up in my face and starts screaming at me. "Why-U-H-A-V-E-N-O-R-I-G-H-T-T-O-M-We-C-H-I-L-D-R-E-N? Why-U-E-M-B-A-R-A-S-S-E-D daughter 1-B-Y-Y-L-L-I-N-G-A-T-H-E-R? Why-U-D-O-N-O-T-G-E-T-T-A-L-K-T-O-M-Y-K-A-D-S? I immediately back up and start trying to explain, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's my job. I'm just," but get cut off again. Y-U-R-E-N-O-T-J-U-S-T. Y-U-R-E-T-E-L-L-I-N-G-M-Y-K-I-D-S W-H-A-T-T-O-D-O. A-N-D-Y-U-H-A-V-E-N-O-R-G-H-T-T-O-D-O-T-H-A-T. W-H-A-T-I-S-Y-U-R-N-A-M-E. At this point I'm just crying, because not only is this customer yelling at me, there's a lot of people in line watching this happen, and it's sending me into an anxiety attack. Lucky for me, my manager's office is nearby, so she comes out to check on what's happening. I don't know what she said to the EM, because at that point I'd started having a full-blown panic attack. But the EM and her kids were ushered away by my manager and one of my coworkers. I was later told they were kicked out entirely, while the other person I was working with led me to the office and sat me down in a chair so I could calm down. TLDR, EM goads her daughter into breaking the rules on a carousel, then blows up at me because I have no right to talk to her kids, sending me into a panic attack and resulting in them getting kicked out. Edit. Thanks, everyone, for the kind words and awards. This was my first encounter with an EP. People in my area usually pretty understanding, so it means a lot to me that so many people are on my side.